This is the Life Story Podcast, Season 1, Episode 1, with Leigha Huggins, author of Love Lottery. Love conquers all. Good morning. I'm Kaylee B, and this is the Life Story Podcast. This podcast is meant to be a platform for people to share their life stories. Our life stories don't always define us, but they give us our purpose. The reasons that we choose to continue experiencing life as a human on this earth with and for each other in all of life's painful and joyful moments. For the first season of the Life Story Podcast, we are focusing on stories of resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover after a stressful or traumatic event. Hearing other stories makes it possible for us to not only empathize with their pain or their struggles, but also to feel and experience for ourselves the joy and the love that can be found again after such intense sadness and hurt. My guest today is the absolutely lovely Leigha Huggins, author of the children's book, Love Lottery, which is currently on Kickstarter and set to be released this fall, 2020. And what a year to be releasing a book focused on love. During this episode, you'll get to hear Leigha's story and how she found and cultivated resilience through intense pain. So Leigha, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm happy to have you. We are ready to hear your story.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't even know where you start. I feel like for resilience, you kind of just have to change your expectations a little bit. And, even starting with today, I really wanted to get up and be beautiful for you and showered. And you know what? I didn't do that. And that's okay. I'm still showing up, right?
You're here. I love it.
Let me rewind. My story of resilience is it's kind of a tricky one because it involves more people than just me. So I keep my story a little bit close to my heart because it's not just my story to share. And I feel like a lot of people will relate to that. So, I want to be raw. I want to be real. And I want to, kind of encourage people along, their journey of resilience. But I just hope that you appreciate me not being completely an open book right now and kind of saving some of my sadness just for myself, but to talk about resilience. And
absolutely. And I definitely think people can relate to that your story doesn't need to be told over and over again, but people need to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Whatever they're going through, we don't need to keep reliving those things, right? But we need to know that there is a way out. And so that's why I'm super excited to have you here, because I think it is really important that we have a conversation about, not having to talk about your story all the time, not having to repeat that narrative to yourself. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, I'm going to share a little snippet of a real life example of, I was in one of my darkest times. I was so sad. I was so depressed. I was heartbroken. I felt, just shattered. And, you still have to get up and you have to do life. And I, still had to be a mom, and I was doing the best I could. And I came home from bringing my little guy to the park to find that my dog had eaten an entire bag of chocolate and had literally pooped all over the house. And do you know what you're no way, this is on top of everything else. And I just remember, I'll never forget this moment. I'm on my hands and knees, cleaning up dog poop, going through some of my hardest times, saying, I could do hard things. I could do hard things. I'm just trying to keep it together. And, I chanted that to myself, that I can do hard things. And, being where I am now and looking back on what I went through, I did hard things. And to be on the other side of pain is it's so rewarding, but it's so hard to see it when you're in the middle of pain. It's like, oh man, I just want to hug anybody who's just has their heart broken right now for whatever reason, because you just can't imagine what life will be on the other end. But being here where I am, I'm so thankful I went through what I went through, because now I have this crazy appreciation of love after pain, and
Yeah.
happy again. And I think when you go through a hard journey and then you recover from whatever that is, it's like, I don't know, it's like the best accomplishment that you can ever do. So,
Totally.
whatever you're going through, whoever's listening to this, I just really, really encourage you to keep that flashlight on, keep on, searching for the light through the dark. And I know it's out there. So
Definitely. And when we talked last time, I mean, you have this like super positive personality, and you told me how, that kind of brought you through a lot of your pain, that you constantly had this like, no, I am a positive person. I want to be that positive light for other people. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about that again? Because I love that.
yeah, I've always wanted to show up for people and be their happy. I never wanted to be anybody's pain.
Mhm.
And, I've always tried to be people's sunshine and light. And like, I have friends that are like, Leah, I totally, used your little Leo wisdom today. And I don't know, I just try to be sunshine. And when I went through a really hard time, I didn't have any of that. Like I went dark, I went silent. I didn't feel like I really had anything to offer. And I don't. Are you talking about kind of my writing journey too? When I was talking about,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you've kind of you told me a little bit about, how this idea of like you being a light in other people's lives really changed the trajectory of where you were going, right? Because that's kind of, it's who you are naturally. And I believe that we people are naturally positive and forward thinking, and that sometimes bad things happen and it kind of gets us stuck. But if you can find that, you talked about like finding these little things, and had how that pulled you out of the darkness. Um, yeah, I mean, I know it was part of your writing journey, so I'd love for you to talk about that as well.
yeah. So, when I was going through a really hard time, I did start to write. Kind of dark. I I wrote this vigilante story, and at the time, that was my expression. And as I kind of journeyed forward, I was like, this isn't who I am. This isn't who I want to be. I don't want to, just because something bad happened to me, I don't want to change who I am at my core. And I really wanted to go back to being who I knew I could be. And so I started to focus on love, and I started to, write these really sweet stories. And it was so healing to me. It was like giving myself permission to be me again after a sad time.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what resilience is, right? Is how you're able to come back to a state of peace and calm after a stressful event. So another thing that you told me about was this flashlight analogy, and I love it so much. And I think, a lot of people think and speak in analogies, and the reason we do that is because it helps us make connections between other things that are going on. Can you tell the listeners about this flashlight analogy? Because it made so much sense to me when you said it.
Yeah. Um, I remember just feeling like I was in this dark room, like pitch black room. I didn't know, what was in front of me, where to go. And, my story of resilience is kind of like, if you feel yourself in that dark room, just, get on your hands and knees, do whatever you need to, look for the flashlight, and when you find the flashlight, then you got to look for the batteries, and you got to put the batteries in the flashlight as you fumble through all of this. And then eventually you turn the flashlight on and you find your way out of that dark room. And, it's a simple analogy, but I think whatever we can remind ourselves of or gravitate towards to get us through. I mean, if you are listening to this and you feel like you're in that dark room, go find a flashlight, put it next to your night table, just turn it on and remind yourself that you have the power to turn on light at, at any time. You just have to give yourself the batteries to do it.
Leigha, what were some other ways that you found yourself or noticed yourself experiencing resilience after going through this pain and heartbreak? Like, what were the little moments that you started to notice in your life?
Um, Sometimes it was creating an intentional moment. Um, you know, putting on a comedy show. I think sometimes you have to allow yourself a break from your thoughts. And if you can offer some kind of distraction or little piece, I feel like that's a win. All of a sudden, it's not like you just go from pain to happy. It doesn't shift like that. It's these little intentional moments. Maybe it's making yourself a cup of tea and putting in the honey and doing a little lemon wedge and just I'm worth this. Like, I'm worth this 10 minutes of spoiling myself or reading a good book, or I mean, whatever brings peace or happiness, you have to allow yourself those little tiny moments to just separate from the pain and just be, just live for the simple. I mean, I guess that's the best way to do it. It's like, it doesn't have to be profound. It has to be a simple escape, a simple, conversation. I started living for moments, and I feel like when I took this huge big piece and I just brought it down to a little tiny moment that I had control over, I felt in control again. I felt like I could intentionally create this moment. And then those moments just became more, and they became, less intentional, right? Like, you just kind of naturally create them. But I feel like when you're in pain, you have to intentionally do things to bring yourself out. And, one thing that I still remember this moment is, I was so sad, and I think wanted to be in bed all day long. And I just remember I wanted to be a good mom, and I wanted a moment more than I wanted to be sad. So I feel like sometimes you just have to want something more than what you're going through. So it's not taking away. It doesn't mean that you can't honor what you're going through. You just have to want something more. And in my case, it was, I wanted to be the best mom possible. So, that was it for me. Like, the rest is just a painful memory that I don't have to go to near as much anymore.
Yeah, that's good. And so out of all of this, out of all of these little moments and the sort of building moments that would help you sort of get out of this, you started writing. And you started writing this gorgeous story that's rhyming, and it's I love it so much. For everyone who's listening, it's going to be in the show notes, the link to the Kickstarter. But can you tell us a little bit more about the story and kind of how it developed and what your process was in writing this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of story behind the story. And I even have, fun little things about it. It didn't all come from a place of pain. Um, so do you want me to share some of my fun little
Yeah,
backstory?
please. Absolutely.
So just to give you a quick little synopsis, I have always been someone that I try to do things for people to create a lifetime memory. I feel like, the older we get, it's the memories that, give us power.
Mhm.
And when my little boy turned 1, I wrote Squeak, squeak, squeaker the mouse, who's been squeaking in this old house? And I crocheted this little tiny mouse and I took pictures of it around our house. And I just wanted to do something for him to have that was, just
So
cute and
cute.
like showed how much I loved him. And then we did a whole mouse themed birthday party. And about 2 weeks after his birthday, we found out we had a mouse infestation in our basement.
What?
Like an entire mouse family. And I still remember, I mean, if you've ever had mice, it's so gross. You have to like throw stuff away. And it was just, I still remember cleaning with my husband and he looks at me and he goes, so did you know about the mice? Did you manifest the mice? And I was like, no, I promise. I don't know what this is all about.
Oh my God.
And so he said, can I just make one request? Can your next book be about the lottery? So I've always
Oh.
had that in my mind, right? Like
Mhm.
the lottery. And then you fast forward, life, sad, happy, um
Journey, really.
the journey of life. And we found out we were pregnant and I wanted to write a book for my second son and do kind of
Mhm.
the same cute little forever keepsake memory. And I sat down and wrote the love lottery. So that's kind of like the happy story of it all,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
funny and it's happy. And then, in the middle of that, when I was going through the hardest time, we were uprooting our life. We were moving. We were, navigating in that dark room with like a broken flashlight. I felt like I had to tap it a million times just to get a little dim light.
Yeah.
And we actually found out we were pregnant while moving. So this this
Wow.
baby, my baby ended up being the biggest light in my darkest time. And I think children are that, I really do. And so I pulled from all of these real emotions and real feelings. And when I started to, focus on love, it just kind of poured from my fingertips. And I wrote so much. I feel like I probably could have wrote a novel. But kids don't like novels. So wrote a kid's book instead. Oh, but um anyways, that's kind of, I get distracted sometimes. I have no idea what my point was, but that's like kind of my story of happy and sad all mushed into one.
And it's beautiful. And that was the question, right? Was what was the process in getting you to this story? So no, that's amazing, and thank you for sharing. And another thing we talked about last time was how this story is for more than more than kids, right? Because you know, kids at the age that this book is for are being read to by their parents typically or by adults that are caring for them. And so, can you talk to me a little bit about why the message in the book is important to kids and adults both?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I kind of think these kids are mini adults anyways. I mean, they're around our life, they're around our conversations. I mean, they they probably know far more than we ever give them credit for. And so I like to speak to kids as adults. I
Mhm.
mean, that's kind of how I parent anyways. I don't try to change how I would talk to my husband. I just include them in the conversation. And so I feel like my message could easily, be spoken to an adult or a child, and you can still get, you know, this resonating message of, love and wishing and welcomes and resilience and gratitude, no matter what your age.
Mm-hmm.
But I think how special is that to create this moment together, just to have those words. Because I feel like sometimes we just need other people's words sometimes, we need to, we need to repeat what other people say, like, I can do hard things, or you inspirational quote. And I'm really just hoping that this book can kind of bring the parent and child together, and they create these little tender, simple moments that they can call back on later, or just to remind them of the simple joys. So it does speak to everybody. So who knows? Maybe somewhere out there we'll have like a single man reading my book with no kids. How cool would that be?
Amazing. And there is one line in there that you wrote that life will be ups and downs. Do you remember? Can you say that line for us? Because that's one of my favorite ones, and I think it really speaks to being resilient. That you're gonna go through tough stuff, and then there are going to be good days again, and that's what this is all about, right? That's what life is all about.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is the part you're speaking of, but I have, this little illustration of a panda that's like torn or missing a ear or a leg. And it's like a needle and thread is kind of going through fixing it. And in there it says, believe in happy and honor sad, try to make good even from bad. And that can mean anything to anybody. It's, and to a child, it can mean that their toy got dirt on it. And that's so sad for them. You know what I mean? And to us as adults, it can mean something completely different and profound. But it's like, all right, yeah, there is happy and sad. And I'm going to honor both of them.
Yeah. And I love it. Leigha, what is the one message that you would like the listeners today and anyone who reads the Love Lottery to know about resilience, about being a resilient person in the face of whatever pain comes your way?
I think when you change your expectations, you really do change your life. And, just don't make expectations so big that you can't achieve them. And really do try to focus on the simple beauties of life, because they are all around us. They are the people we love. They are the books we read. They are the flowers and the colors of this world. And, I really want to capture appreciated moments and share that and remind people of the beauty through the sad. So, that's my biggest goal. That's my dream of sharing this message is, just to give a little heart hug and just be real. So,
I love that.
yeah, it's as simple as that. And then, my dedication, I wrote for everybody. And if it's okay with you, I'd really like to read it, because I felt like just as profound as, this book of love was. I understand that there's always another side. There's that balance of life, that yin and yang. And in my heart of hearts, I couldn't write a book focused on love without acknowledging the sadness, the loss, like the real things that people go through. So I didn't necessarily write my dedication for any one person. I wrote it for everybody that would get this book. So here's my dedication. To honor you, you have to honor others. To honor love, you have to honor loss. To honor success, you have to honor failure. To honor unknowns, you have to honor knowns. To honor dreams, you have to honor change. To honor comfort, you have to honor discomfort. To honor happy, you have to honor sad. I honor you in your journey of love, success, unknowns, dreams, comfort, and happiness. And I honor all you've had to go through to get there.
It's beautiful. I love it. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I am so excited for you for the book. I love that we have been connected and that we have had the opportunity to share your story on the podcast today. And I'm super excited to get my book in the
Yeah.
fall. I can't wait. The illustrations are they're gorgeous, and you've done an amazing job. So thank you for sharing your heart with the world.
Thank you.
I
Thank you, Kaylee.
I will post a link again to the Love Lottery Kickstarter in the show notes for today. And then it will also be on social media if you're watching this video online. And that's what we have for today. It's the first episode of the Life Journey podcast. It was so wonderful to have you, Leigha. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
On next week's episode of the Life Story podcast, I'll be talking with Mireya Fouché, a Mexican-American woman on a mission with a passion for humanity. For over a decade, Mireya has been building platforms dedicated to serving underserved youth and young adults nationally who have encountered homelessness. As the founder of One Heart, One Soul, and a mother to a Haitian-Mexican toddler, she incorporates all things art and wellness into her days and believes there is power in our stories. They are our stories to tell. Be sure to tune in to next week's episode of the Life Story Podcast, Season 1, Stories of Resilience. Until next time.